Hi guys, Super Secret Tech here, and we're going to be going over the Theros set review. This is a limited set review, not a constructed set review, and today we're going to be going over the color green. Before we get started, there's a couple of mechanics to be very aware of that are going to affect limited ratings. The first is monstrous. It has huge implications in limited and sealed since it adds a lot of reach to otherwise smaller creatures. And heroic is a pretty big bonus because it's a very enchantment heavy set, so it's going to have multiple triggers, hopefully. The other thing to be careful with heroic is 2-for-1s are going to happen. You're going to equip a creature with bestow on a heroic creature. It's going to trigger the abilities, and that creature's going to die, and you're going to lose your equipment. Like, those things are going to happen. So just be mindful that they're going to happen. So you don't want to stack too deep. The first card we're going to talk about. The other thing you'll notice, I didn't go in alphabetical order this time. I kind of switched it all up. Because when I went into alphabetical order on M14, like I ran into like 10 bland cards in a row, and like it's hard to stay excited about that. So we switched it up a little bit. First card is Fade into Antiquity. It's a decent removal since this is an enchantment heavy set. Pick it up mid to late. It's a C pick. The fact that it exiles and doesn't destroy is a pretty big plus. So if you don't have any other way of dealing with artifacts or enchantments, pick this guy up high. But if you already have a little bit, because there's like 3 or 4 different spells in green that give you this ability. So if you don't have one, pick this guy up pretty high. If you do have one, he's a fine mid to late pick. Nelu's Presence, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. I'm sorry, my Greek and Roman pronunciations aren't the greatest. Um, it's 1 and a green. It's enchant land. When Na's Presence enters the battlefield, draw a card. So you get it replaces itself. And enchanted land is every basic land type in addition to other land types. So it's really good mana fixing, and it replaces itself. So it's a C plus card because basically if you don't have a bomb or a removal in the pack, this is your first pick. Warrior's Lesson. It's 1 green. It's an instant until end of turn. Up to 2 target creatures you control each gain whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw a card. It's really good card draw at instant speed, and it also has really good artwork, which is important to me. But especially in limited play, since it's an instant, you can do this after blockers are declared. So say you're swinging with 5 guys, they have 3 blockers, they block 3 of your guys. Your other 2 guys, you pay 1 green, you play this card, you draw 2 cards. It's solid B plus. It's probably the best draw spell in green, maybe besides like Harmonize. Like Harmonize is probably a little bit better, but this is really solid. Reverent Hunter. Um, if you're mono green, this guy's amazing. Um, he's 2 and a green. I'd really like to see him as 1 green. So he'd come into play as a 3/3 just by himself. But when he enters the battlefield, put a number of +1/+1 counters on it, equal to your devotion to green. Each green and the mana cost of permanents you control counts towards your devotion to green. So, if you played let's just use this as a uh, RTR example since I'm a little more familiar with those cards than these. So, like, turn 1, you play Ooze. Turn 2, you play Burning Tree Emissary into. It doesn't matter. You can play it into a 1 red guy. And then you play this guy turn 3. So he's going to get a total of 4 devotion because you have 1 green on Experimental Ooze, you have 2 green on the I went blank for some odd reason. The Shaman, then you get another green off the Hunter, so that's Devotion 4. So he's going to get 4 +1/+1 counters on it. So he's a 5/5 on turn 3. Just so you know how Devotion works, since I haven't gone over that mechanic yet. Savage Surge. It's 1 green, it's an instant, and target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn and untap that creature. It's a uh, it's a good combat trick, but it's nothing that's like super duper exciting. It can possibly be removal, but it's normally going to be just untap your creature and block a dude. So it's a solid C pick, like mid to late. Boone Satyr, this guy is really, really sweet. He's one green green, so he gives devotion of two. He's a flash with bestow of three green green. Um, and so the way bestow is worded is if you cast this card for its bestow cost, it's an aura spell with enchant creature. It becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. So you bestow it, put it on a creature, and again it has flash, and that creature gets 4/2. Or you can just cast it as one green green and just he has 4/2. So you can do it either way. The +4/+2 is pretty strong, especially with flash. And it's an A in draft and an A minus in sealed. The only reason it's a little bit worse than sealed is because games are going to go a little longer and there's generally more removal. Ordeal of Nyla. It's one and a green. Enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then, if it has three or more +1/+1 counters on it, sacrifice it. Now, notice it doesn't say sacrifice it and remove the counter, so it still keeps the +3 counters, +3/+3 counters. When you sacrifice it, search your library for up to two basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. It's pretty good mana fixing, and also mana acceleration. It's a solid B pick. Um, and especially in sealed, like if this is in your pack, you should probably play green. Hunt the Hunter. One green, target creature, green creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. It fights target green creature and opponent controls. Uh, this card is going to be sick in standard. It might not be the best in limited just because it's very focused. It's green versus green removal. It would have been really nice if this would have been an RTR block. It's a B in removal, but it is limited, so be careful when you're picking it. If you've been getting all kinds of crazy good green drops, most people probably aren't in green, so I'd pick this up very late. Voyaging Satyr, one in a green. It's a Satyr Druid. Tap and untap target land. It's a 1/2. It's a mana dork. They aren't extremely useful. They are extremely useful. I'm sorry, but nothing to get excited over. It's a solid C pick. Mid to late is when you're going to want to pick this guy up. Don't pick him up in the first couple of rounds. Ferris Band Centaurs. Uh, I think that's correct. I'm going to butcher it, so there's going to be several names that I'm going to butcher. Just bear with me. It's a 3/7 for 5, 4 and a green. It's a really good blocker. It's not a good attacker. I would pick it up pretty late in the draft. You're not going to want to pick this guy up early. Karametra's Acolyte. I hope that's right. Um, Add an amount of green to your mana pool equal to your devotion to green. This guy with Gyre Sage can produce some insane amounts of mana and can really ramp up fast. Because you can go uh, turn 1 uh, Elvish Mystic, turn 2 Gyre Sage into like a 2/1, so it evolves Gyre Sage. Turn 3, play this guy. Turn 4, you can produce a ridiculous amount of mana. So it's really good Excel in constructed. In limited, it's going to be okay. It's going to be more of a blocker than anything, but in the right deck, it can definitely be a first pick on pack 2 or 3. If you're like mono green and you already got a bunch of devotion stuff, like you can pick this guy pretty high and be comfortable with it. Nyla, God of the Hunt. Um, it's 3 and a green. It's a legendary enchantment creature god. It is indestructible. Remember that exile card that I was saying that the exile part comes into play? This is why. You can kill gods with the exile card. So uh, if you think you're going to go up against a god, you can first pick the exile target artifact or enchantment because it will kill them. And it might be worth doing, but it is again a risk. I think it's better to wait till a little later on to do that. As long as your devotion to green is less than 5, so that means less than 5 green permanents on the battlefield with green in the cost, not that are like 3 and a green, that's not Devotion 5, or Devotion 4, that's just Devotion 1. It isn't a creature, but if you have 5 or more, it's a creature. Other creatures you control have trample, which is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. 3 and a green, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. In limited, that is amazing. And it's a 6/6 for 4. So it's pretty powerful. It's probably the second best limited god, and it's probably the second or third best constructed god. Um, there's only one card that I would ever suggest picking over a god, and the fact that they would both be in the same pack is very, very rare. But basically, you're always going to pick up gods, and you're going to build around them. Even if you pick this guy up pack 3, you're going to get as much green as you can out of pack 3 and play with it, because it's that good. Staunch-Hearted Warrior, it's 3 and a green. It's a human warrior, it's a 2/2, and it has heroic. When you cast a spell that targets Staunch-Hearted Warrior, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Now, remember that heroic triggers whether you remove the creature or not. However, since it's putting counters, that part takes it away. But like, say you put an enchantment on this guy. That's a really good time when that trigger to add the 2 counters to it is on the stack, to kill him. And since he's only a 2 toughness, it's pretty risky using him. But man, is that a powerful mechanic if you can get it going. So you're really going to want to enchant him when they're tapped out. You're not going to want to enchant him when they have open mana, because it's really risky. But it can have some huge rewards. It's a B pick. Anathusa Cestian Hero. Again, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing these right. It's 3 and 2 green. Heroic. When it becomes the target of a spell, you can that targets it. Up to 3 target lands you control each become 2/2 warrior creatures until end of turn. They're still lands. Now remember, heroic, you don't have to cast it the turn it comes out. So what that means is you can cast this next turn, equip it, trigger heroic. 3 of your lands become 2/2. Swing with those 3 and her equipped. It's really strong ability and limited. It's a solid first pick. It's an A-. It's a bomb. But again, anything with heroic, you just have to remember they're going to want to remove it. Luckily, this one has 5 toughness, so it's a little harder to remove. Nessian Asp. It's 4 and a green. It's a creature type snake. It has reach. It has 6 and a green monstrosity 4, so that's going to put 4 counters on it. So that's going to make it an 8/9. Monstrosity gives this card a lot of reach. 5 mana for a 4/5 is a pretty solid mid pick, and that's how I would pick it. I would pick cards with monstrosity a little bit higher than cards without monstrosity, just because of that added late game bonus. But basically, turn 5, you can play this guy. Turn 7, you can make him ridiculously big. Arbor Colossus. 2 and 3 green. It has reach of 3 and 3 green, monstrosity 3, so he's going to add 3 counters to him. When he becomes monstrous, destroy target creature with flying and opponent controls. So he's a 9/9 on turn 6. And he kills a creature. So it's an amazing mid to late game ability. This is one of the best bombs besides the gods and Plocoranos. Like, those are definitely the 2 best bombs in green. But this guy's way, way up there. He's a solid A pick. Commune with the Gods. 1 in a green, it's a sorcery. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature, an enchantment creature, from among them into your hand. Enchantment card. Put the rest into your graveyard. It's super value and limited. Basically, it says pay 2 mana and look at the top 5 cards of your library, put the best creature enchantment among them into your hand, and throw everything else in your graveyard. In limited, this guy is awesome. It might see constructed play, but limited, this guy's a powerhouse. That's a solid B pick. Leaf Crown Dryad. It's 1 in a green. It has Bestow of 3 in a green, and so it's going to come into play as an aura. If you play it for Bestow, it has reach, and enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has reach. And then when it dies, it goes back to a 2/2 with reach. It's the most aggressively costed of the cycle. 2/2 reach for 2 is good, but not exciting. It's a C pick. It's not great, but it's good. Nyla's Emissary. We went from the most aggressively costed to the least aggressively costed. It's a 3 and a green with bestow of 5 and a green. It has trample, and enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and has trample, and it's a 3/3. This whole cycle, the bestow cost mimics exactly what the creature is. So for 4, a 3/3 trampler is pretty good. Um, but you're probably not going to want to bestow this because it's just going to be so late in the game. And most of the cards that need trample have them in this set, or you have like Nyla to actually give everything trample. So this guy is probably better just casting by himself instead of bestowing him. Defend the Hearth. It's 1 and a green. It's an instant. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to players this turn. Um, this card's interesting for a couple of reasons. One, it doesn't stop creature combat, so you can like block super heavy on their biggest guy, kill it, fog, protect yourself from the added damage. Uh, it also has amazing artwork. Like it makes me think of the movie 300. The artwork's just awesome. But the other thing is because it says players and not from you, it's very useful in multiplayer formats. It's probably a D pickup. You're going to want to pick up this pretty late in the draft. Probably past turn 10. And the draft is when you're going to be looking for a card like this. But it's going to be really solid in multiplayer. Like if you're a big 2HG or Commander player, this card is really good for those formats. Nemesis of Mortals. 4 green. Nemesis of Mortals costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. 7 green. Monstrosity 5, so it makes it a 10/10. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each creature card in your graveyard. So you can get this guy out pretty quickly, and I have a feeling that there's going to be an aggro deck that utilizes this creature because it's a pretty strong bomb for a reduced cost. Basically, what I mean by that is like something that's just going to throw little dudes in the air and expect and just keep attacking with them and expect them to die, and then you're going to play this guy and just blow him out. Like that's how this card is going to be played. So it has huge bomb potential. It's not a bomb by itself. That's the reason it's a B plus and not an A. If you're going very aggressive, this guy is your finisher. If you're not going aggressive and you're going heavy enchantment, don't touch this card. It is horrible for you. Um, so just be very aware of that situation. Like if you're going to play a lot of cheap dudes, this guy's awesome. If you're going to play a lot of big dudes, this guy's horrible. And so there's a very fine line to walk there with this creature. Plokromos World Eater. 2 and 2 green. It's a legendary Hydra. It's got Monstrosity X. You pay XX green to activate it, and you get, for each 2 mana you pump in, you get 1 counter. When he becomes monstrous, it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures your opponent control. Each of those creatures deals damage equal to its power to Polochronos. So, you're basically never going to want to pump this over 5 unless you're wanting to use it as a board wipe. The reason I say that is that they're going to deal damage back, and you want to have a buffer zone. It's a great combat trick. Like, if you're attacking, they block, you start blowing up their guys. Just remember you can kill your creature in the process, so be careful about how much you pump. He's really, really good in Constructed and Limited, and he's the only card I would draft over God. He's a solid A+. This card is absolutely amazing. Satyr Hadoist, or Hendoist, I don't know, I'm probably butchering that. It's 1 and a green. Pay red, sacrifice it, add 3 red to your mana pool. It's a 2/1. It's not really mana fixing, but it's mana excel, which is slightly better. It's a C pick in most decks. If you're going green-red aggro or green-red mid-range, it's a B pick because of the excel. So just remember that. The other thing that's really cool about this card in particular is in for a constructed scenario would be like turn 1 experiment 1, turn 2 this guy, turn 3 uh, Burning Tree Emissary into another 1 green drop, uh, and then sack him and play Reckoner. Like, so you could go uh, ooze this guy, like ooze Burning Tree, sack him, Reckoner. Like, and so it just, like, there's some really cool combinations. I think Girl Aggro is really going to be a thing after this block comes out. So keep your eye on that as well. Satyr Piper. It's 2 in a green. It's a Satyr Rogue. Man, is this guy disappointing compared to Elvish Piper. It's 3 in a green. Target creature must be blocked this turn. If able, it's a 2/1. Satyr Pipers obviously aren't Elvish or anywhere close to it. It's still a good limited ability. It's a C pick, but man, like when I saw Piper, I was expecting a lot more. Artisan Sorrow. It's 3 in a green. It's an instant. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Scry 2. It's extremely useful, but it's extremely overcosted at the same time. In limited, this is going to see play um, because the number of enchantments and artifacts in the block. But it's still like a C pick. Like, don't pick this too high, because then you're going to just be disappointed when you start with one of these in your opening hand if you pick up too many of them. Volprin Goliath. It's a 4 and 2 green fox crawlworm. It's got trample. It's a 6/5. It's a crawlworm. Gets the job done. It beats faces in, but it's nothing exciting. It's a D pick. It's a late game pick. Nyla's Disciple. 2 and 2 green. When Nyla's Disciple enters the battlefield, you may gain life equal to your devotion to green. It's a 3/3, so you automatically gain 2 life just by playing this creature, because it has devotion too. It's more of a constructed card, but it's still okay and limited if you're heavy green. It's a C pick if you're heavy green. If you're not heavy green, pass this guy. Feral Invocation. This card is amazing. It's 2 in a green. It's an enchantment aura. It has flash. Enchant creature gets +2/+2. The key here is the flash. So you're going to use this as a combat trick. Like, you're going to either attack or block and then play this. And it's better if like they're already like, especially with like Pulocoronos. Like, this card is amazing with him because you can trigger the monstrosity when they're dealing the damage back. You can equip this to your guy to save him and, deal more damage out. I mean, it can be a complete blowout if played correctly, but it is a combat trick, so it can still get stopped by removal. So keep that in mind, but it's a pretty high pick. Mistcutter Hydra, X and a green. Mistcutter Hydra can't be countered. Haste, protection from blue. It enters the battlefield with X/1/1 counters on it. This guy is the epitome of I hate blue. It's a B. It's not the best bomb in the set, but it's right up there, just because of the fact that it has a color hoser tied into it. This card will definitely see constructed play. As far as limited, it's not the best bomb, but it's still a pretty good bomb. Agent of the Horizons. It's a 1 and a green. It has the ability of 2 and a blue. Agent of Horizons can't be blocked this turn. It's a 3/2. It's a unique ability for a mono green creature. Normally you don't get the unblockable on mono green creatures. Normally they're like green and blue. If you're going Simic, you get a lot of added advantage. So if you see this guy and you pick him up like pack 1, around like 6 or 7 or 5 to 7 basically, is where a C would fall. Pack 1, you see this guy, you pick him up. It might be a good idea if you have, later in the pack, if you start running out of green, to move into blue. Because you're going to get a lot of added advantage, especially in limited, with the unblockable mechanic. Shredding Wings. This is an awesome removal spell for green. It's 2 and a green, it's an instant. Shredding Wings deals 7 damage to target creature with flying. So it's really good against white and blue. And some black cards. And some red cards. And in particular, most of the other colors cards that are bombs in the set. It's solid B card. You're going to want to pick this pretty high. Nessian Courser. It's two and a green. It's a 3/3. It's a vanilla. It's fine. It's a D pick. You know, you're going to want to pick this up later in the cycle because it doesn't have any abilities, but it's still a very fine, solid card. Bow of Nyla. This card is awesome. It's a 1 and 2 green. It's a legendary enchantment artifact. If you see two of those in a draft, though, I would still play two because it's that good. Attacking creatures you control have Death Touch, which is awesome. And then you have 1 and a green. Choose one. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Or Bow of Nyla deals 2 damage to target creature with flying. Or you gain 3 life. Or put up to 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order. This thing has so much limited potential, it's absurd. You're going to basically pick this first pick every single time. And if you're not in green, you're probably going to want to go into green just to use this card. The 4 abilities are all very combat oriented, except for the last two. Like the first 2 abilities are very combat oriented, either putting +1/+1 counters on your guys or killing one of their guys. Are both very, very strong in combat. The other 2 are very, very strong late game. So you have 2 early game slots, you have 2 late game slots. So it's very well rounded. It's very well costed. It's an A pick just for utility and reusable effects. This is something you're very comfortable pumping mana into every single turn to use. So don't let this bow pass you up. Sedge Scorpion. It's 1 green. It's a 1/1 with Death Touch. Now, normally, a 1/1 green you're going to pick late, just because it's a 1/1 green creature. However, since it has Death Touch, you're going to pick it a little bit higher because it's almost always going to trade up. You're almost always going to be able to kill a 2 or a 3 or a 4 mana creature with your 1 mana creature. So it's a pretty solid C plus pick, which means that you're going to pick it anywhere between like 3 and 5. If you see this pick 3 to 5, or there's nothing else in your colors, this is a really good solid pick to go into. Time to Feed. 2 and a green. It's a sorcery. Choose target creature an opponent controls. When that creature dies this turn, you gain 3 life. Target creature you control fights that creature. It's really strong removal for green, and you gain life off of it, so it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's a solid A pick. Sylvan Caratad. I hope I said that right. I probably messed it up. It's 1 and a green. It's a plant. It's a defender with hexproof. Tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, and it's 0/3. Since it has hexproof, he's really, really strong. It's like Utopia Tree on steroids. This is going to be a standard staple, and it's a really good mana fixer, and it's hard to deal with, so it's an A pick. Centaur Battlemaster. It's 3 and a green. It's a Centaur warrior. Heroic. When you cast a spell that targets him, put 3 +1/+1 counters on him. So, if you put an equipment on him, he automatically becomes a 6/6. It's a huge pump machine. He's one of the best bombs for an enchantment heavy deck. He's a B pick only on the fact that it's risky, because just like I was saying with the 2/2 creature, when those triggers are on the stack is the best time to kill him, so it's easy to kill him at a 3/3 slot. That concludes the set review. Green is very strong, and I misspelled that horribly, with decent removal and good bombs. Green is the first best color to draft in this set. I hope you enjoyed the set